Good morning. I think we still have a couple of people coming in. Foghorn from the Edmonton. Thank you. I'm Ron Fuller, the chairman of the society, and I really want to thank everybody for coming this morning. Carolyn, I think you've turned out a massive crowd here.
Thank you.
Very
good.
Liz is going to introduce Carolyn, but we're really happy to have her this morning. Before I ask Mr. Plymell here to say the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to encourage everybody that's here this morning, if you're not a member of the Garland County Historical Society, we need you and you need the record. You need a lot of things from our society. There are brochures back here on the back. You can also go online, and while you're back there are some lovely pictures that the society has had printed. Early Hot Springs here, Babe Ruth, I believe, and some others. So feel free to pick those up. Mr. Plymell, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almost. All right, I would move the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, if we can have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it gives me a great deal of pleasure here to report our nominating committee had met. Guess we met a couple of weeks ago, and I'm proud to announce that we have 3 individuals who are going to continue to serve 3-year terms. Kate Wheatley Bennett, Lisa Coleman Carey, and John Hopple has been nominated to serve another term. Would there be anybody else that would like to nominate anybody for us to consider at a future point? And we always need help and volunteers. So thank you. With that, the nominations will be voted on at our November meeting. So at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our illustrious executive director, who will introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Ron. I want to thank everyone who attended the program we co-sponsored last Wednesday at the Arlington with Rex Nelson. Did anybody go to that program? Look at the hand. Well, we really appreciate your attendance and support there, and of course we do so here today. Please join us at our next meeting on November the 18th. That's the 3rd Tuesday. The program will be given by Dr. Kane West. Remember Kane? He's a National Park Ranger who's given wonderful programs for us before. This is a program he was supposed to give last February, but we got rained out. His topic is Treating the Masses, Hot Springs, and the History of Public Bathing in America. That's a mouthful, but I think it means he's going to show how Hot Springs emerged as the leading public health resort in the country. Another date to save, December 16th, Tuesday. That's the date we'll be having our annual Christmas dinner. We don't have a program like this in December. Instead, we have that evening Christmas dinner. So please save the date, and later this year we'll give out more details about how to make reservations. But today, let's get back to today now. We are so happy to welcome Carolyn Staley. And if you grew up here back in the day, you knew her as one of the Yeldell kids. And we're also very happy to welcome another Yeldell kid, Debbie, who is here with her today. Where are you, Debbie? She's in the back. Welcome, Debbie. Well, you just can't sum up Carolyn. Her life has been full of so many accomplishments, starting with advanced degrees in music and in theology. She's led federal and state agencies. She was the deputy director of the National Institute for Literacy in Washington, D.C., the director of the Governor's Commission on Adult Literacy, the director of state services for the Arkansas Arts Center, and the director of the Arkansas Arts Council. That's just a few. And she has served not just in the sense of being employed by, but she's served in the higher sense of serving others as an associate pastor and as a pastor and a member of the boards of many nonprofits. And her passion for helping others even led her to go to Africa over 3 summers to start literacy programs that combated HIV and AIDS. And she has this whole other life as a wonderful musician. She's performed and she's taught at prestigious institutions all over the country and even in Russia. Well, she's done other stuff, but you'd rather hear her talk than hear me talk about. You know, she had a resume as an accomplished writer before she wrote her most recent book. And that recent book, of course, has received rave reviews. And with our wonderful GCH board member, Jean Laceville, lending a hand, she's now going to have a conversation with us about the boy next door. And I think you know who that is. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's get on up there.
No, come on, Carolyn.
All right. I'm going to take the slow road to China here.
And I'm gonna take it on the other side.
Okay. So good to see this crowd and so many friends. Former neighbors, former church member friends, high school classmates. I'm not only whelmed, I'm overwhelmed. Thank you.
So Carolyn, we're gonna have to share the mic.
We will.
We can do it. And I think it sounds like we can just hold it here and it'll be just fine.
Good.
So I am so honored as being a board member of the Garland County Historic Society, but also to be Liz asking me to moderate this particular discussion. It's a conversation that we're going to get the inside story of a friendship, okay? Of a friendship that has lasted 60 years, 64 years, and we want to know all the good stuff. So, Carolyn, in getting started, I want to thank you for being available to do this.
Thank you for the invitation.
And so let's start at the beginning. Tell us how the first time you met Bill and his family, and what was that like, and what was his ambitious, and what was the curiosity around him? How did you guys just meet and hit it off?
In the book, those of you who have read it will know that my doorbell rang and I answered the door, and standing there was a tall, good-looking guy I'd heard so much about. He was now my new neighbor. We hadn't met yet, but I remembered seeing him outside geometry class as I stopped for a drink at the water fountain, and I remembered him chatting with a friend nearby, and suddenly he stopped and looked my way. He raised his voice and said, "And she's going to be my new next-door neighbor." It was a slightly indirect first interaction, and he didn't approach me to speak, but he wanted me to hear what he said. Now he was standing in front of me, looking at me through the screen door. The classmate I'd wanted to meet was right there. I was slightly stunned to see him, and my mind raced for a second. Why was he here? I hadn't dwelled on it, but I was curious to meet this classmate. I'd wondered how and when and where I'd meet this guy. I didn't have to hope for another introduction any longer because he was at my door. I hoped he hadn't come next door without us going to his house first. It was customary to take cupcakes or a pie or something to a neighbor. But he smiled slightly, probably as unsure about our first meeting as I was. And I smiled and opened the door and invited him in. Hi, I'm Billy Clinton, and I have a favor to ask you. I need a piano accompanist for my saxophone solos at the state band competition. I wondered if you'd be my accompanist. And I said, sure, I'll be happy to. I hadn't ever accompanied an instrumental soloist before, choir and voice primarily, but I didn't think it would be anything I couldn't manage. We both breathed and smiled, and we were pleased to have this new partnership in place. And the conversation flowed more easily, and we talked about when we might begin. He could bring a saxophone over to our house. I had a piano, and it would be really easy to rehearse. Life is funny. You think about things you hope will happen. You wonder about how, when, and where it will. And then in an instant, the moment comes. You open the door, and there he stands. I met Billy Clinton.
Absolutely.
Stunning. 15.
So like the president, you've been a concert musician, performer, and community leader. Do you believe your shared interest is what held your friendship together?
There's no question that music formed the foundation of our friendship. And the other thing has been student leadership and community leadership. When we moved to Hot Springs, my father was pastor of Second Baptist Church, and it was 1961, and I was entering high school as a sophomore. I knew no one. I had been accompanist for our junior high school choir in West Memphis. I had run for student council. I had been the top PTA salesperson for magazines. My mother said I'd leave the house and say, I'm not coming home till I've sold 10. And she said, and you wouldn't. And so he and I had leadership interests and service in common. And so that just formed the basis of our relationship. I asked all summer, who do I need to get to know? And Bill Clinton's name came up all the time. And so I was really delighted. When you're in band and choir, you're in a curriculum plan, a schedule that's based around those extracurriculars. And so we didn't have classes together until our senior year, but we bonded over those two things. And then later, and maybe I can talk about it a little bit, our faith was also a fundamental of our relationship.
Wonderful. So now let's talk about something humorous.
Okay.
As reading your book, I saw that many moments, there were funny moments in your book. So can you tell us what really made you have that belly laugh with Bill Clinton?
Oh, Bill was just, he was a practical joker for one thing. When I went to Ouachita for 3 years, and he and one of his roommates from Georgetown dropped me off one fall and put a bottle of whiskey in a shoebox. And if I had been caught with that, I would have been out the door. It didn't matter. I was top freshman classmate and, on the judicial board, I would have been out. But I ran down after shrieking, ran down to the ravine and poured it out and got rid of the bottle somewhere. But he was just a fun guy. We had hilarious friends who were always standing around and poking jokes and making us laugh and giggle. One time we hid in the closet his freshman year home from college. David Leopoulos, Paul, to many of you, grew up here in Hot Springs, and we heard him come in and screaming, "Where are they? Where are they?" We had put up a big sign, and we just fell into each other's arms, belly laughing, and we were constantly giggling. And he wasn't always the one who made the jokes, but he appreciated a good belly laugh, better than anybody I ever knew, and he still does. He loves to laugh. I send him jokes with most letters I send, and he tells me, keep sending them. In this day and time, in our country and in our world, we all need to laugh.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you talked about your leadership being one of the core principles that kind of bonded you. So can you tell us a little bit about Girl Nation and Boys Nation? And it seems that was a turning point in both of you guys' lives.
It was. I had no clue as a high school newcomer that I would be selected to go to Girls State. I always tell my grandchildren, run for office, make a way to become known as a leader wannabe. You may not win everything. I know my mother said when I was nominated for student council office, she said, "Oh no, Carolyn." She knew that I couldn't possibly win with all the popularity of the other candidates, but I wanted to get out there and try. And so to be nominated by my teachers was really an honor, and my Girls Nation buddies put me up for governor of Girls State, and I was on stage a lot playing the piano every day for the national anthem and other things, our songs. And I caught the attention, I guess, of the counselors and the other girls, and I was elected to go to Girls Nation. And Bill had gone to Boys State the week before and was elected to Boys Nation. Boys Nation and Girls Nation are patterned after the Senate. And there are 2 boys and 2 girls who get to go, and 2 of us were next door neighbors. So that was really a phenomenal coincidence, I think a God thing, and that we got to go and have that time together. We both got to meet John F. Kennedy, and Bill was photographed and videotaped at meeting Kennedy, and that was really a turning point. His mother said that when he came home, Virginia noticed that he was so taken by what we had learned in Washington, D.C. Those programs really were a red carpet rollout to invite us to run for public office or to come to D.C. and be a part of our nation's leadership, because our high school principal, Johnny May Mackey, taught us that public service is a high calling and that we needed to consider it. So he had thought about music as a possible career direction, but didn't think he wanted the night hours. He didn't think he was good enough to be a saxophone star, and he was star powered. And so public service called him in that opportunity to go to DC, and we're so grateful that he listened.
So now tell us a little bit about your beating him in an election in the high school for secretary.
Well, our high school principal, Johnny May Mackey, again, instituted a leadership point system, because she noticed that the same people were getting nominated and elected to all the offices, and she wanted leadership to grow from amongst us, from all corners of our class. So you could only have 10 points, and each thing you did added up to that. And I had been junior class secretary, and he could only run for secretary of our class, and he was nominated. And I'm sure 2 things: I was secretary the year before, and aren't secretaries girls, right? But we were out in the hallway in Hot Springs High School in a runoff, and he looked at me, and he was very serious, and he said, "So help me, if you beat me for this, I'm never gonna forget it." And I kind of, I hope he's not being serious, but he hasn't forgotten it. And the press had fun with that when he ran for president, that he had lost to John Paul Hammerschmidt, but he lost to me too. But it wasn't a big deal.
Good. So what do you admire about the Clintons? So we're gonna talk about what was his home life like, his family memories, life at the Clinton house. You grew up as a daughter of a pastor of Hot Springs, and the family was central to your upbringing. So what struck you about the Clintons' home life?
Well, first of all, just going over next door and seeing that house, it was an live better electrically model home. It was a speculation house. Sammy White was the contractor. And I liked just walking through and marveling that it had a wall-to-wall vacuum cleaner system. It had a pink bathtub, sunken tiles all over, wall-to-wall mirrors, a toilet closet, and was just an enormous, beautiful place. I loved going over, and the door was always open to me, whether they were home or not. Virginia would come home in the evening and put on her long Lauren Bacall pajamas and mules and walk into the family room and say, nobody's told me all day long how cute I am. Enjoyed her so much. Of course, my dad being a Baptist preacher and fighting gambling, and them going, Virginia being at the track every day it was open, made for an instant friendship and a curious one. But she and my mother were tight friends, and Virginia would come home. Bill got Roger off to school many, many times, and she had to go to work in her starched nurse's uniform, come home and change into her lounge leisurely clothes and her gold jewelry, put the top down on that Buick convertible and drive off. And my mother was in the backyard one day hanging out the laundry and saw Virginia flying by in that car, and she yelled at her and said, Virginia, you're not going to that old racetrack, are you? And Virginia said, Kay, let's just call it a fellowship and we'll all be happy. I never knew anything about any problems. Roger was always so kind to me, Roger Sr., and I never saw or witnessed any difficulties that I read about later in their life, but they were dear, dear people to us and still hold such fond memories.
So, as a working mother and a committed public servant, you built your life around with your husband and your family in Indiana, and where you met and went to graduate school. What was it about Bill that urged you to come back to Arkansas?
Well, we had followed him, of course, stayed in touch. I still have letters from back then. And when he was Attorney General, we congratulated him. And then when he was elected governor, he wrote and called, I think, and said, I always thought if I did something good with my life, you'd come home and be part of it. Would you do that? And then, secondly, can we be neighbors again? And I thought that was such a warm and wonderful invitation. So we found a house in the downtown Quapaw quarter, and just 3 blocks from the governor's mansion. And it was so much fun that he and Chelsea and Hillary were in our home lots and lots all the time, and would jog by, come in, get a cup of water, visit with us. I'd run out and visit with him. And of course, the day after he was elected president in November 1992, I was at an after party, and some of his Georgetown and Hot Springs friends came up to me and said, we think brunch at your house at 10 o'clock is a real good idea. Well, that was before the advent of 24-hour grocery stores. And so we found a 7-Eleven that had eggs and bacon. I had some Bisquick for biscuits. I had some fruit, and nobody cared what we ate anyway. But the Georgetown and the high school classmates, about 20 of us gathered. And David Leopolis called Bill and said, we just want to let you know we're cheering for you and lifting a glass. And he was at the front door in 10 minutes. He and Hillary walked over, and then Virginia and Dick followed right after them. And we just were so blown away at that experience. And we were terrible friends wanting him to sign everything. We had newspapers, books, pictures, and it was fairly abusive, I think. But sometime during that morning, one of the friends said, "Have you looked out your front window?" And I hadn't, and looked out. There was an empty lot across from our house, and it was packed. I mean, there were hundreds of press and photographers out there. The sidewalks and streets were blocked off for his safety as he was inside visiting with us. And so my husband, a photographer, said, "Let's get a picture together of everyone on the front porch." And it's in the library. You'll see it if you go and visit up on the 3rd floor in the galleries. A picture that is in the book and was in this slideshow too, that went in the middle of Newsweek, the Centerfold, and newspapers all across the world. And actually, when I was singing in Russia, Bill was coming to meet with Yeltsin, and they included that picture in the Moscow newspaper. And I thought, what are the chances that my picture with our friends would be in the Moscow newspaper? But it was a chance for us to just bond, and a chance for us to reflect, to show the world what kind of a guy he is. I had a rabbi friend from Pittsburgh who wrote to me and said, "Now I know who he is, because I saw him in jeans and a plaid shirt and jacket, and he's one just like me. We're all just alike." So, and so many press after reading this book have said to me, "He's a regular guy. We just didn't know that about him."
I think your book illustrates how an everyday person can do extraordinary things in their friendship. So I'd like to know, we all remember Bill and Hillary when they were beginning to become parents. Could you tell us about Bill and fatherhood?
He was on the road when Chelsea was due and got the call and just went into panic mode and told the state police, "We've got to get back to Little Rock. This kid's on the way." And he was there, and as she grew, Hillary told me the story about how Chelsea was starting to roll and was on their bed, and Bill was sitting next to her on the bed, and he said, Hillary, watch this. She knows where the edge of the bed is. She is so smart. We have birthed an amazing child." And he said, "Watch this." And she rolled right off onto the floor and didn't hurt herself, thankfully. But every time I babysat, or my girls did, he was on his knees next to her bed when he got home, and they had their bedtime prayers. The stories are famous about him helping her from the campaign trail with algebra problems. He never missed a recital. He was always there, and of course, she's the light of their life, but just wonderful memories of family friendship.
And so now we're talking about a friendship that has lasted 64 years. So can you share with us the qualities that Bill that has remained unchanged through those high school days up to current?
Bill Clinton is a thoughtful friend. He shops for me on vacation. He shops for all his friends. Wherever he is traveling the world, he's bringing something home to share at Christmas or birthdays. He checks in with us. My husband has had a stroke 8 years ago and is wheelchair bound, and Bill is constantly checking on Jerry. When your husband is in the hospital and Bill Clinton calls the hospital, the nurses start paying extra good attention and taking good care of you. So use that trick. He is thoughtful to text and to write to ask how things are going. Our letter writing has turned into texting more now, and I sit down and try to be faithful to transcribe those texts so that I can keep them with the notes that we've shared. But we've shared so much in life, and he'll always be telling me, "Pray for me. Thank you for your concern for my health, or I'll say, I'm reading my Bible and I see I've made a note here, you were hospitalized this time last year. And he said, yes, we dodged a bullet. We just share things that you would with your friends. It's just a normal back and forth. But I just want the public to know what a kind-hearted, thoughtful, fun friend he is. When he was in the White House, he was surrounded by power, but he wanted his friends there. And one time, Tom French is here, Jim and I and Phil Jameson were invited to a birthday party for the president. And we got there, and the only other people were the Supreme Court, the cabinet members, and his top donors. And we looked at each other and said, what are we doing here? But he wanted to share his happy personal memories and times with friends. So we still talk about it today, how those were remarkable opportunities. He invited us out to the Rose Garden, what used to be a Rose Garden, to the Rose Garden to have a talk with the press when Nixon died. We would be at the tree lighting on the Ellipse, and it was either Patti LaBelle or Queen Latifah or some big singer helping turn on the lights to the tree, and he yells out, hey Carolyn, hey Jim, hey Phil, and there we are just back in the crowd. But we're his old pals, and it simply made it a personal, not a political, presidential time, a personal friendship moment for him to share with his old buddies. He's a remarkable guy like that.
Where you both shared a life of service. So how did that lens of life of service, how did that work in the White House and shape your experiences in the White House with him?
It was such an honor always to go to the White House. And I got to go a lot. My office, the National Institute for Literacy, was just across Lafayette Square. So it was just a 5-minute walk across the street and across Pennsylvania Avenue. And so he invited his friends again, always, to state arrival ceremonies. White House, or the State Department protocol dictates who gets invited to state dinners, but we were always invited to the arrival ceremonies when the president and his wife would pull up to the door of the White House and get out on that circular drive. And there was an area roped off for us, and Bill always looked over and greeted us and was so happy to see his friends. He wanted us to share those experiences. And boy, were they royal. They were wonderful experiences. To so many special openings and events, the Olympic torch, women's soccer championships, PBS programs that were being taped at the White House. We just always knew, though, he was always Mr. President, and he still is Mr. President out of respect for that office, and just a constant sense of holding him up in our prayers, and high regard, and deeply, deeply proud of him. But he wanted us to be a part of every minute of it, inviting me to enjoy the Lincoln bedroom, to spend the night there, and several other nights to ride on Air Force One, which you saw pictured. Remarkable opportunities. I remember being in the Lincoln bedroom, and I wanted to get up and see Hillary the next morning, and I thought I had set the alarm clock, but I set the heating blanket. And I got in bed, and I had set it on 7, and I felt warm, and I said, golly, this is a fancy bed. It even, can detect your body temperature and warm up to make you comfy. And that was a good laugh. I could hardly fall asleep from the ticking of the clock that was there when Abraham Lincoln used that room as an office. Their son died in that bedroom. So many memories. Getting in the big bathtub and saying Winston Churchill's tush has been in this bathtub too. and just so many memories, but he allowed it all to become such a personal memory.
Those are great, great memories and stories. So you talked about you're now texting. This is a fast-paced society that we're in right now. So how are you able to keep this friendship strong? I know you mentioned texting. Are there other ways?
Well, I will say he's been such a fan of this book project and of course wrote the foreword. He keeps wishing us well. He wants to know where I'm going and speaking, and he knows I'm here today with you. I can't believe the friends I'm seeing today, and neighbors and church friends and Ouachita friends, and it's remarkable. High school, and I'll write him afterwards and tell him who I saw and what a good crowd we had. We stay in touch mostly around health issues. I write to him when a classmate is sick or has passed away, and he asks me for contact always and wants to be in touch by a phone call or a note. But we just try to keep each other updated, and I'm grateful. He's busy, he's on the road. I had a text from him this fall, and he said, I'm in Singapore, just landed in Japan, he's, for all the kicks and the knocks he gets, what he has done and what he did as president for our country, I still think is just a matter of record for employment and for the economy and for healthcare, so many other things that may not like everything he's done in life, and I'm not proud of everything he's done, but I don't know personally about the bad stuff, so I don't write about it. That's not my story, and it's chronicled in detail other places, whether truthful or not. But I know him as a kind-hearted, good friend, and I will always be his supporter.
That leads us to the final question. Your hopes for this book. What do you hope your book conveys to readers as new information for them to know about Bill Clinton and more?
One of the things I've already said, and that is he's a regular guy. He's your best friend. He is like your best friend, and I think we share that kind of relationship. I want people to know about his faith. I'm a preacher's kid, and I'm an unapologetic Christian, but I've sung in temples for 30 years. So however you experience God in your faith, I want you to know that Bill Clinton is right there with you. From our childhood, from our teen years, we've shared scripture, and we've shared, he'd come to our church for youth revivals. He was baptized as a boy who had just gone to a revival at Park Place Baptist Church, still here on Park Avenue. He and Bert Jeffries, Bert died in Vietnam, were being baptized together that same day. And the pastor had a very large overweight woman just going ahead of them into the baptistry pool. And as he immersed her, her foot went up and got over the glass splash plate that protects the choir from the baptistry waters, and couldn't get her foot down, and she was flailing in the water. And so Bert and Bill were just hysterical, and it gave them an opportunity to breathe a sigh of relief and laugh. But through the years, he has told me, and he told Yeltsin when he was in January of '94, when Virginia died, just after his mother's funeral, he was to go to Moscow to meet Yeltsin. And Yeltsin was trying to start a democracy in Russia. And so he invited Bill to go to the dacha after their time together and to visit about how does one form a democracy. And Yeltsin leaned over to him. Bill told me this later. He said, hang around and let's talk after I get back. And he leaned over to Bill at the dacha and said, you're a Christian, aren't you? And Bill said, yes, it's the most important thing in my life, next to my family. It's my faith. And Yeldell said, I've got to stop these Christians from coming into my country. Everybody's putting crosses around their neck and getting baptized. And it was a threat to the Russian Orthodox faith, which is the historical underpinning of that culture. And so Yeltsin, whether people were actual believers or not and had a personal faith, they were all Russian Orthodox. For the most part, there were Jews, of course. But Bill looked at him and said, Boris, that's not the way it works in a democracy. Either you're free or you're not. And you have to let people make their own choice about their faith. And I told that story later to the religion writer at Time magazine, who said Bill Clinton kept the doors open in Russia to the spread of the Christian faith, to missionaries to being able to come in. And I remember one Christmas, it was snowing, and not many of our friends could come over, but we sat and talked in the living room to a few, and we got around to faith. And Bill said the most important book I've ever read is C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. And he said, the reason it is the most important book is it opened my eyes to how you can't get to faith through your head. You have to go through your heart. You have to open your heart so the Spirit can guide you to your belief in God. And Bill just said, I've read it many, many times. And I commend it to you. I went back and read it again after that. But it's a phenomenal book by, of course, the Tales of Narnia, Chronicles, and so many other writings of C.S. Lewis. But he is unapologetic about his faith and the need for prayer. And so I hope that readers will learn that about him as well.
So Carolyn, you have shared some of your wonderful travels and your memories with Bill. But if Bill were standing in the back of the room, what would you say to him right now?
Thank you. Thank you for being my friend. Oh my goodness, it just makes me get teary to think about. But thank you. And I do thank God. How is it possible that next to my parsonage, our parsonage, this house would go up and that this young man would be my next door neighbor? You can't plan these things. And I do believe that God was at work even then in our lives, bringing us together as friends. Nobody talks about his faith, but I can. I can talk about him as a genuine friend, where few others can. And I just, who would have planned that Virginia would pass away, or that I would be in Russia the very same time he's in Russia? I mean, these things cannot be explained in everyday terms without talking about the power of God. And so I'm just grateful that our lives were brought together, and that I was urged for years and years, but when you get to DC, you learn about power. And people would come into my home and say, you don't have a single picture of Bill Clinton on your wall? And I didn't. And one decorator said, we're going to fix that. You had to have a power wall. And she grabbed about 6 or 10 pictures and had them beautifully matted and framed. And now they're back down in the hallway, a few of them in our home, but you just don't put big pictures on your wall of Bill Clinton. But people do enjoy seeing them as they pass by. I just think that having the opportunity to know him and to have those experiences and to share life together has been something that I wanted to take time to write about. Friends would say, you know him personally. You have stories that no one else will have from a political point of view. You need to write it down. And finally, COVID hit, and I had the time, and I sat down and got busy. And I'm glad I did, and I'm glad you all came. And thank you for buying us out of books. I think there's 4 left. You'll have to race back there if you want one. Otherwise, there's 2 left. and Nanette can order some more. And they're gonna be, I hope, a fun Christmas gift, and that you will share it widely, talk about it. And thank you so much for being here today and letting me tell you about my friend.
Thank you, Carolyn. Let's give her a round of applause. Carolyn has been so gracious in sharing her treasured memories. Our blessings go with you and having safe travels. And thank you all for coming out here today and sharing this moment with us.
I have a little song. Do we have time?
Yes,
Are
we
out of
do. We have time.
Carolyn will make time.
Oh, thank you. When Chelsea was born, I thought, what can I give this child? And I remembered that my husband, you don't have that pulled up, do you? I've got to do it. My husband, Jerry, when Sarah was born, gave me a bud vase with 2 long stem roses, red roses and a little pink rose. And I said, I'll take her that. And I got that arranged, walked into the governor's mansion kitchen and was overwhelmed by the greenhouse full of roses from every potentate, king and governor and leader in the world to welcome Chelsea. And I just said, I can't leave my little bouquet here, my little 3 roses. They'll never see it. And then I remembered what I had read, that gifts and flowers and rings are excuses for gifts. The only real gift is a gift of yourself. And I'll write a poem, I'll write a song. So I did. And it was the International Year of the Child in 1980. It was, we're the wonder state. We are the natural state. And so I wrote a little song called, and it's in the back of the book, You're a Natural Wonder to Me. And if I can make this work, we'll see. And I had it until I clicked it, and we'll see if this works. No, I can do that. It's just wanting to load. There it is. We'll see if this works. Little tin. I'll play for myself. We welcome you, Chelsea, to our great big world. Welcome with love and with pleasure. We've already had so much joy in our life, but your life's a new gift we treasure. We tried to get ready, we tried to prepare. One day you're a dream, and the next day you're there, looking at us with your beautiful eyes. And we know we're not worthy, and we hope we'll be wise. 'Cause child, you're a natural joy, full of natural laughter. Your tears are natural too, and I'll dry them dry after. Your days are so young and so free, full of promise of what you will be. And child, you're a natural wonder to me. You'll find lots of things are important in life. Some Some more important than others, but one of those things stands above all the rest, and it's living as sisters and brothers. Your life's a book, and the pages are clean. There's so much to do, there's so much to be seen, and it has to be wonderful, it has to be good, and we'll try to lead you in the way that we should. 'Cause child, you're a natural joy, full of natural laughter. The tears are natural too, and I'll wipe them dry after. Your days are so young and so free, full of promise of what you will be. And child, oh child, you're a natural wonder to me.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Beautiful.
Thank you so much for coming. This is a gift to me, for you to be here today. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
You need some help?
Sure.
Come right on down.
From
Come right
one
on.
septuagenarian to
There you
another.
go.
Oh, thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome.
Thank you.